Hello, Indian mythology fans. My name is Sonika, and I am the author of the book Who God Really Is. Today I bring you the story of the birth of Lord Rama from the famous Hindu scripture, the Ramayana, and the dynamic circumstances surrounding it. As always, after telling you the story, I will teach you the very useful lessons of this ancient Hindu myth that you can still apply to your modern life and spiritual understanding in the 21st century. Now, Hinduism is sometimes called a complicated religion. It's why I wrote the book Who God Really Is, a book in which the principles of Hinduism are best understood and God is explained through a modern rational lens. Do grab your copy on Amazon today. Let me tell you the story of Rama's birth now. Once upon a time, there was a grand kingdom known as Ayodhya in India. There lived a wise and noble king named Dasharatha, who was always adorned with the finest robes and gold jewelry. He ruled with justice and kindness. He was never embarrassed to show his kindness to the common man of his time. But as time went on, King Dasharatha thought deeply about the fact that he had no heir to his throne. He felt alone and grew tense day by day. Surrounded by his 3 queens and their servants, much of King Dasharatha's days were spent thinking about the one thing missing from his life, a child. Without an heir, the future of Ayodhya remained uncertain. One day, the king decided to seek divine help. Inside a massive Hindu temple located in the heart of Ayodhya, King Dasharatha knelt before Lord Vishnu, his hands clasped in deep prayer. A sacred golden fire was lit before him. As smoke rose from the holy fire and the flames cast shadows across the intricately carved stone walls of the Hindu temple, the king begged Lord Vishnu for a son, for an heir to his throne. Hope filled King Dasharatha as he exited the temple. He then visited the great sage Vashishta, who advised him to perform a sacred ritual, the Putrakameshti Yagna, to seek the blessings of God for children. Dasharatha invited the powerful sage Rishyasringa to lead the yagna. The king made elaborate preparations, ensuring that the ceremony was performed with utmost precision, inviting scholars, sages, and priests from far and wide. As the sacred flames rose high, the gods in the heavens took notice. Devas or demigods also took notice of the earthly king's yagna. They were compelled to surround Lord Brahma. They begged God with great fervor to please stop the treacherous demon king Ravana's wrath. The demon king Ravana was wreaking havoc across the 3 worlds. He had gained immense power through severe penance, and even the demigods feared him. They knew that only a thoroughly divine force could defeat him. With heavenly celestial ether billowing from his throne, Lord Brahma thought carefully. When Ravana was granted the favor from me that he would not be able to be killed by anyone, exceptions were made as to humans and monkeys. Only humans and monkeys still have the power to slay this demon. Ravana did not seek protection from these 2 types of living beings. Lord Vishnu, suddenly remembering King Dasharatha's earlier prayer in the temple, saw an opportunity. He arrived soaring through the heavens on his majestic eagle mount Garuda. He wielded his divine conch, whose sound ushered promise and hope amongst the devas or demigods. Right then and there, God declared that he would be born on earth as a human prince, the son of King Dasharatha. And in the form of that prince, he would slay the demon Ravana. Meanwhile on earth, the king's yagna was coming to a conclusion. A divine messenger slowly rose from the sacred flames with a golden bowl. The bowl carried a sacred pudding known as payasam or kheer. The messenger approached King Dasharatha and handed the bowl to him. The king looked at it with astonishment. The majestic figure, shining like the sun, addressed Dasharatha. "O king, the gods have blessed you. Take this divine kheer and distribute it among your queens. They shall bear you mighty sons." The messenger advised the king to listen intently and carefully to his instructions for the sacred pudding, because the king could not afford to make any mistake. King Dasharatha did exactly what he was told. He rushed to his palace and carefully distributed the kheer among his 3 queens. He gave Queen Kaushalya, the eldest, the first portion of the pudding. Then he gave Queen Kaikeyi her portion from the sacred golden bowl. And Queen Sumitra, known for her wisdom and devotion, consumed 2 portions of the pudding by also taking a bit from each of the other queens' portions. All of the queens joyfully consumed the blessed offering, unaware that they were about to bring divine children into the world. If you are enjoying this podcast, please leave a rating or review. I really appreciate it. In due time, the queens were pregnant. King Dasharatha looked up and clapped his hands in gratitude and immense joy. Ayodhya buzzed in anticipation for the arrival of the newborns. More time passed, and eventually Queen Kaushalya gave birth to a son, Rama, on the day that is now celebrated as Ram Navami by Hindus worldwide. A divine light surrounded his birth, as he was the incarnation of Lord Vishnu. The light surrounded his mother too. Rama's birth was marked by celestial signs. Flowers rained from the sky, the air was filled with divine music, and sages and demigods rejoiced. Soon afterward, Queen Kaikeyi also gave birth to a son named Bharata. The servants of the queens were filled with excitement as they prepared the royal chambers for the auspicious events. Much to their surprise, news came that Queen Sumitra was also giving birth that day. She had twin sons, Lakshmana and Shatrughna. Interestingly, since Queen Sumitra had consumed the kheer from both Kaushalya and Kaikeyi's portions, her sons were naturally drawn to Rama and Bharata. Lakshmana especially developed an unbreakable bond with his brother Rama and would follow him like a shadow. The wise sage Vashishta, the royal guru, named them Rama, which means the embodiment of dharma or righteousness; Bharata, which means the upholder of virtue; Lakshmana, which means the devoted and fierce protector; and Shatrughna, which means the silent force of justice. King Dasharatha, alongside his queens, cradled his newborns. You couldn't have found a happier man in all of Ayodhya, even if you tried day and night. The sight was picture perfect. The people of Ayodhya were overcome with rapture. The streets were adorned with flowers, and musicians played festive tunes. Gifts and sweets were distributed, and the entire kingdom basked in the glory of the newborn princes. Astrologers of all statuses studied the stars and declared that the king's children were destined for greatness. As Rama grew up, he tried to make the bow and arrow his own and master archery. After a bit of struggle, he ended up displaying extraordinary archery skills. Under the guidance of sages and scholars, Rama and his brothers, including Lakshmana, who was deeply devoted to Rama, learned the scriptures and statecraft. King Dasharatha understood profoundly that his child, Rama was no ordinary child. Great adventures awaited Rama. This was the story of the fascinating circumstances that surrounded Lord Rama's birth. What are the lessons we learn from this Hindu myth? Number 1, when we remain in a relationship with God, even through times of lack, darkness is guaranteed to dissipate. No matter how much the dark forces of sadness and even immense patience want to capture us, we must stick with God, just as King Dasharatha did. He also didn't give up on his desire to have an heir. Lesson number 2. Hinduism understands the tremendous benefits of active worship better than just about any other religion. It is through the active worship of God that our relationships are solidified with Him, and our decision to turn to God with devotion for help ends up relieving the suffering of other living beings. Remember that King Dasharatha's worship ritual ended up benefiting the devas or demigods who were also seeking relief from suffering. They needed relief from the demon king Ravana. So often, people who worship and pray to God forget this truth. We often focus on our one-on-one direct relationship with God within our acts of worship. In my book, Who God Really Is, I write, "The Holy Code constantly responds to proper or genuine God worship activities. These activities are like direct access helplines to God. They are communication portals that are needed by us humans and are honored by God." To understand why and how worship of God really works to make things happen for us in our lives, do grab your copy of my book, Who God Really Is, on Amazon today. Now, as we worship, we forget that other people are also relating with us and our psyches. And as we worship God, we can help change other people who are relating with us for the better, as our own lives gradually or suddenly improve. King Dasharatha's worship of Lord Vishnu and his sacred fire ritual benefited many. We also learn from the Hindu story of Lord Rama's birth that both good and bad possibilities are allowed. Lord Brahma granted what the demon king Ravana prayed devotedly to him for. However, we also learn that the least divine beings cannot outsmart God's grand plan. I discuss this truth in detail in my book, What is God Good For? Evil, Karma, Sin, and Suffering Correctly Explained Finally. I write in my book that evil or suffering is marked by disturbance. It is a disordered state of reality. Due to its own state of being, evil or suffering cannot persist. Though various forms of suffering symbolized by demons are permitted in existence in Indian mythology, they are ultimately sucked back into the original center of the matrix of reality. Only the goodness of God remains eternal and expansive. Do remember to grab your copy of my book, What is God Good For? Evil, Karma, Sin, and Suffering Correctly Explained Finally, on Amazon today. In that book, I also provide a more elevated, upgraded, more honest, more truthful alternative to the Four Noble Truths by the Buddha. And again, if you have found it somewhat difficult to understand God well through the often complex Hindu stories, then do read my book, Who God Really Is, on Amazon. It is a book in which the principles of Hinduism are best understood and God is explained through a modern, rational lens. Thank you for listening, and I'll speak with you in the next episode.